looks like we are pretty well ready to start. And we are also streaming live to YouTube. So my name is Terry Gottholz, and I'm with the Center for Global Education. And I gotta tell you how excited I am about hanging out today. We have some great friends who are hosting today's session down in Calgary from Beakerhead. And Carolyn, I'm gonna pass the microphone over to you to do some introductions. But while Carolyn is talking about Beakerhead schools, I want you to be ready, because we are gonna go to you and you are gonna tell us a little bit about your school. Now, if you're not comfortable, teachers, you can kind of come up and you can just say, but we want you to tell us, where in the world are you? Because although this focus for today's conference is kind of on Alberta, and we have like the northern part of the province and the southern part of the province joining us as interactive sites, we also have some friends joining us from a little bit farther away. So Carolyn's going to introduce us and talk a little bit about Beakerhead and about today, what's happening. And but I want you to be ready, because before we go to our special guest, we are going to hear from the schools that are joining us live and interactive. Okay, so teachers, you're going to want to grab a student, and if they just want, I can even talk to them, and they can introduce their school kind of as a conversation, and they can tell us about your school that way as well. You can just tell us where you are, what class you're in, what your name is, and if you have one really cool thing about your school you think nobody else knows, I'd love to hear it. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, my name is Terry Gottholz, and I'm with the Center for Global Education, and we are so very pleased to be working with our friends at Beakerhead, who are pushing the bounds of art and science, bringing together this creative brilliance that we want all of our young people to have, whether they're in a chemistry class or in a physics class or in a science class learning about the environment, or in an art class. We want to start to break down those barriers that a lot of times we've allowed to exist, and we want to bring them together and find that no matter what we are doing, we want to bring our creative power to what we happen to be doing at the time. So Carolyn, I'm going to pass the microphone over to you, and tell us a little bit about Beakerhead, and maybe if you want to tell us a very little bit about what we might see today, because I get to introduce our guests later on. So Carolyn, to you first, and then to our schools. Over to you, Carolyn.
Hi, Terry. Thank you so much. This is Carolyn coming from Beakerhead in Calgary, Alberta. Thanks, Terry. That was a good introduction for Beakerhead. That's exactly what we are. We're education at the crossroads of science, art, and engineering. And we've been around for 6 years. We come together in an event in Calgary for 5 days. But what my role is doing 365 days of education programming. So that's what we're going to see today. And that's, we talk about crossing science and art. And one of the things that came to mind was Danny Scheibel of Tapigami, and that's who we have here today.
Brilliant. So before we go to Danny, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, because we got to hang out before y'all came online, and we're going to hear about some of our schools who are here. All right. So first, we're going to go to our friends in North Carolina. And, I already said where you're from. All right, still, we're gonna go to North Carolina first, and tell us a little bit about yourself. Then we're gonna go to our friends in Glengarry School here in Edmonton. And then we're gonna go to our friends who are joining us just outside of Calgary and Testermere. So North Carolina, tell us who you are.
I'm Zakia.
I'm Xavier.
I'm Lachey. We're from Kinston, North Carolina.
We're in an art class right now.
Yeah.
IB art.
IB art.
Really? And tell me, what's something about your school you think nobody knows? Because it's actually quite a bit at this point, because we just met you.
We carry an IB program.
Okay.
I guess. I don't.
Awesome. No, that's a great program to have. And I'm especially excited to see some artists who are here, right? Because it'll be cool to see your perception of the work as you personalize the work that's Danny do. Okay, we're going to have a round of applause, though, for our friends down in Kinston. Welcome, Kinston. North Carolina, good to have you here. Woo-hoo. Okay, next, we're going to talk to our friends in Glengarry. Glengarry School, tell us who you are and where are you from?
This is grade 6 from Glengarry Elementary School. We're in Edmonton, Alberta. A cool fact about our school is we're bilingual, so we all speak Arabic and English.
No way.
We acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting grounds and gathering place, and a traveling route for the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands before us for centuries.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much, Sahran. Thank you so very much to our friends in Glengarry School. That's excellent. And you know what I'd like to do? I would just like to take a second to acknowledge what was just shared in terms of the traditional territory. Because ladies and gentlemen, when we make these connections and we're talking about learning isn't something that just started to happen when European people came to North America a few hundred years ago, right? Learning is something, and celebrating learning and bringing different communities together is something that's been happening in this community, whether it's the Saulteaux, whether it's the Blackfoot, the Métis, the Dene, the Nakota Sioux people, as our friends in Glengarry said. But we're continuing that tradition that's been going on for over 10,000 years in our community by doing exactly what we are. So thank you for acknowledging the fact that we are making a link, a much deeper link than something that's just about technology new today. So thank you. Great job, Glengarry. Let's go now to our friends in Calgary, and then we're going to meet our special guest for today. I mean, Chestermere. Go ahead, Chestermere.
Hey, go ahead. Al, come on up. The mic is right over here.
We're in Chestermere. This is St. Gabriel the Archangel. And something cool that not a lot of people know about us is that we have something called a flex session. So every Tuesday, when we're supposed to have homeroom, we actually go to something that'll help us know more stuff about a topic that we're researching.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That sounds like a great thing to be able to have in your school. I love that flexibility that's there. And hopefully one of those things we're pursuing is really how we can bring the art and science together, which is a celebration of what we're doing today. Let's hear a round of applause for our friends in Chestermere. Well done, Chestermere.
Thank you.
And I see online we have our friends in WG Murdoch who are joining us from a little north of Calgary. I've been to your school, fabulous school, great work that's going on there. And ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna hop back down to United States, and I'm gonna introduce to you our special guest for today, joining us all the way from Sacramento, California. Danny Scheibel is the creator of the contemporary art form Tapigami. And he was first attracted to masking tape because of its versatile, accessible, and malleable nature. Danny used the unlikely material to create large-scale institutions and create an accessible and interactive art form. I love the fact we got to spend a little bit of time talking beforehand about the fact that you're using something that a lot of times in art, we think, oh, I'm not an artist, right? I'm not someone who's able to do this. I've learned from all my schooling years that it's something that I'm not good at. But I love, Danny, how you shared how this is a form that people haven't used. And it's a time for us to rediscover that artist who's within each of us. And I just want to thank you so very much for bringing us all back to this hub of creativity and insight that art can do, and how it's inside of each of us to do exactly that. So Danny, without any further ado, let's hop on down south and tell us, what is Tapigami?
Good morning, everyone. How are you guys doing? So I'm going to talk for a bit, but realize this is a conversation we're having. It's not a lecture I'm giving. And Tapigami is a made-up word, and it's an art form that we all get to make up together. And we're going to start with the 3 rules of Tapigami and go from there. And I have to warn you, if I'm not making any sense, it's because I'm literally making this whole thing up as I go along. So the first rule of Tapigami is to have fun. That's the first rule of creativity. So don't worry about being good at something, worry about having fun while you learn how to do it, and you'll learn a lot faster and enjoy your time a lot more, right? So you don't want to try to be good at something you don't know how to do. And in fact, you cannot be bad at something that you've never done before. So it's about approaching it with an open mind and experiencing it and sharing it with other people. Now, the second rule of Tapigami is that there's an infinite number of second rules. And we all get to make it up as we go along, because it's not my art and it's not your art, but it's our art, and we're doing it together. And then we just don't talk about the third rule. So Tapigami is designed to be accessible, and it starts as a roll of masking tape. And you're going to take this roll of masking tape, and I'm going to make this look really easy because I've done this for 45,000 hours. And you roll it into a tube. Now this is what everything's made out of. So everything that I have, and I'm going to show you different examples, right? This is all made from that tube. And I didn't actually make this. I taught someone how to do it, and they now travel around the world with me, and we make tape sculptures everywhere we go with everyone we meet. And it's not a unicorn, it's a derpicorn, because it's made out of tape.
Can I use green? Is it okay if I have green tape, or does it have to be? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good.
Well, tape is another word for ribbon. It's a non-cloth ribbon. This is adhesive tape because it has an adhesion on the outside, but every material is different. This tape is plastic. It's not paper. It has a much more rigidity than duct tape. So you can use any tape that you want to create the shapes and the forms, but it's using the right tape for the right job, right? So how I got started, I didn't understand school once we stopped having recess. I'm just throw that one out there. Like once there was no more play, I didn't understand why we went there and gathered together, because we can all learn on our own whatever we want, but it's the play that lets us process. And so I drew to get through school, and I make things out of tape to get through life. And I'm a classically trained contemporary sculptor and performance artist, but I specialize in making you have fun being who you want to be in the world. And so the tape can be folded into a bunch of different forms to make different shapes. So if you guys ever have a meeting or a long car ride, or you just need to take a break, remember, you can always just take a roll of tape and make some friends along the way. Now, the tape, because the adhesion's on the outside, lets you build with it however you want. And think about this tube like a Lego that you use your imagination to manipulate. And that's how the whole system of Tapigami works. It's really just a distraction so you believe the things that I say. Now, I'm a professional artist, which means my job is to make up the world. And that's complicated, but I like my job because it's complicated. But everyone's an artist. It doesn't have to be your job. The function, I run into people all the time, they're like, I like functional art. The function of art is to give you the ability and the tools to be who you want to be in the world and overcome trauma in your life, or come up with answers to questions that don't have solutions yet. It's the study of the creative process. Just because you can't draw doesn't mean you're not an artist. And that was disproven a long time ago. Art was our original language, and it's our most truthful history. So we used to sit around the campfire at night and use pieces of art to tell the stories of who we wanted to be. And we would have an oral tradition, and we could make up our lives so they made sense. And I feel like we've kind of gotten away from that, and we read books about who we are instead of make up stories about who we want to be. So when it comes to figuring out an idea or creating a hypothesis, the creative process is really useful and amazing and wonderful. Albert Einstein used to envision himself riding light waves through the universe in order to come up with his theories. And for me, it's just a daily practice that keeps me grounded, and it allows me to make people feel powerful about themselves. And so for me, that's the true function of art. And you know, at any point in time, you can ask questions. I know that right now I'm just going to be talking for a little bit. I'm going to go through I'm going to hold up different examples of stuff and just sort of talk about the ideas behind them, and then we'll go to the next section. But You know, the tape has the potential to display any sort of form that you want out of it. And remember, these are all made by hand, and these are all made anywhere. They don't require any special tools. They just require a lot of patience with yourself. So one of the things that I love the most about the masking tape is that I haven't ever come to the end of what you can create with it. And there's a lot of cutting involved as well. If you cut the tube, you can get floral shapes. And once you get really good, you can make things with no beginning and no end. And this is just, it's tape and scissors. And that's, for me, my favorite part about it. And then teaching other people to do it. Now, what I've been making for a long time is a city. And the city is 4,000 square feet, or there's about 280 meters square. And the city's made by everyone who wants to do it. And I've found a way where I can travel around and I can find different institutions that think that creativity is important. And then I set up collaborative art installations where we teach everyone how to roll the tape into a tube and fold it back on itself to make the shapes. Now, anything that you make, you can put in the city. And it's a big sculpture that's built by everyone. So instead of being told you can't touch the art, we tell you that you are the art. And this is how you can participate if you want. But I'm just here to show you how I make things out of tape, and you're more than welcome to do it however you want. And so the idea is to legitimize you into wanting to create the world you want to live in. And art's not always going to be the answers to the questions or the answers to the solutions to the problems, but it's always the best place to start. And it's a way to process everything that's going on in your life so you can have clear vision. Now, once you're done with your first sculpture, make sure you stick it on someone you don't know and you can become friends with them. So it's a tool, right? Art's a tool. It's a lubricant for society. It opens people up. It makes them warm and awesome. And when I first started, I did not walk around and make art everywhere I went with everyone I met. I drew by myself in a room. And I had to teach myself how to do this through interacting with people. And that's something that I wanted to do because my goals are different. I want everyone in the world to learn how to make sculptures out of tape. Don't put any constraints on yourself that you don't want, and don't limit yourself in your ideas and your process, but don't feel like your art has to be anything other than it is. So I think we're pretty good on, you know, I can talk for a long time, but I prefer to answer questions because I feel that's a better way to communicate.
Danny, we got some questions.
Okay.
I'm not a great multitasker, eh? And the creating tubes out of ribbon is tricky, but I think I got it. I think I got my tube. And
now here's the question: is the sticky on the outside or on the inside?
Yeah, you see, that's what I did wrong on the first one. I put the sticky on the inside, and then when I tried to roll, it wasn't rolling. And then I realized. But I'm gonna try to make a little combo action on this one. But maybe while I'm working on this, I know our friends at Glengarry Elementary have a question they want to ask. And so Glengarry, I'm going to give you two options. I see that you wrote the questions to me, but I'll tell you, I would way rather someone come up to that microphone. I know it takes a lot of courage because we got people here from all over North America. And I also want to welcome, we have two other schools that have joined us online. Sundance School has joined us. Welcome. It's great to have you here. And our friends at Queen Elizabeth High School have also joined us. Welcome, Queenie. It's great to have you here. So, Glengarry, I understand if you want me to just read it. I'm totally cool for it. Otherwise, I would love. There we go. I see he's here. Someone's up. Come on up. You want to get close enough that you can touch the computer. If you can touch your computer screen, then we can hear you. If you can't touch it, we can't hear you. And so you got to touch it, and then you have to stay touching it, because if you touch it and then you back away, then once again, I can't hear you. So let's try this one more time. Glengarry, you go ahead.
How long did it take him to make that hat on his head?
Well, I didn't make this hat on my head, so it took no time whatsoever. But it is another sculptor. His name is Dan Tran, and this is called Grow a Tree. And these are made out of the excess irrigation tubing with little plastic inserts in the irrigation tubing that are cut with a laser cutter at our local maker space. And Dan leaves these all over. And I happen to be the captain of the Fancy Hat Club on our street where I live in Sacramento. And so this is one of my fancy hats. But it's good. You can take whatever you make and put it in there. It's structurally strong.
Whoa, awesome.
It's collapsible. It's really fun stuff. Maybe for another Beakerhead, Dan Tran can sign on.
So cool. I wonder, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to make a hat. So I'm going to be working on a hat. I don't know if it's going to look as cool as yours, Danny, but I'm going to do, we'll see how far I get.
Well, remember, we're never comparing our art with each other. We're only challenging each other to be better.
Brilliant. Brilliant. You know what? I'll tell you. So I'm a dad and I've been a teacher for like 20 years. And I just want to tell you that, Danny, what you said really touched me. I love that piece you said. I read books about who we are rather than make up stories about who we want to be. Is that what school's all about? Like our job as a teacher is to help to dream stories and tell stories together. That's amazing. Hey, and something else that was said that we got a kid here from Glen Meadows in Calgary who's also joined us. Welcome, Glen Meadows. We're great to have you online. Thinks that tape rolling is awesome.
Excellent.
As with the foldy thing that you just showed. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Glen Meadows. That's great.
Definitely. Why don't I do a close-up of how it starts? So when you're starting, it's best to start with a little piece of tape and a little tube. And you just start on the edge and you push across like that. Imagine your thumb is a surfer, right? So this is all delicate work. You can't force the tape into existence. You have to tickle it into existence. And it's mostly made by rotating the tube, right? So you're turning the tube like this. And the most important thing, well, besides having fun, is just to be patient with yourself. Don't judge yourself, right? You guys know what happens when you judge yourself? You're the only one that's upset. And you know what that means? You successfully ruined your own day. So you never need to judge yourself. Just treat yourself with love and care and give yourself time and patience. And that's what's going to let you grow. And little tubes to start off with. Don't worry about big tubes. You'll get there.
Brilliant. Thanks for, yeah, I was really struggling, Danny, on how to get that rolling going, because I was trying to do it like a big, like roll it all at once, but you start in a corner and then you make I'm trying not to judge myself, Danny. Man. Yeah. Okay. So while I'm working on this corner, we got another question here from some friends in Sundance. So now they're not one of our interactive schools. So St. Gabriel, I want to go to you guys next. So St. Gabriel Chestermere, I want you to come up with a question, and then you're going to ask Danny our question or a statement. You can share something, or if you have some art you're making, share that too. That'd be great. But I'm going to read from our friends from Sundance, and they said, "Hi, Danny. Can you tell?" This is from Lindsay Cohen O'Brien. "Hi, Danny. Can you tell us more about what made you get? What made you get started?" Huh.
Well, what else are you going to do? You know, I got all the way through school and I came to the conclusion that the best use of my time was to make art everywhere I went with everyone I met. Now, I live in America, and that's a country that demands money from you every day. So I was either going to get a job or I was going to learn how to talk people out of money. And my job, I'm a professional artist. So the way that I make money is by writing my name on a piece of paper. And how much money I make has to do with how well I can talk to others. Now, getting started, Americans, for the vast majority of them, they don't like their art. They don't spend time trying to create themselves. And it's getting better, but I wanted to know why that was, because it's the most fulfilling and wonderful part of my life and my day, is to create something and share it. And so I had to find the best way to share it. And I had to break down all the barriers to entry to art. Well, one of them is financial. Like if you're getting into sculpture, you're not going to find a sculpture material that's very inexpensive, that doesn't require infrastructure or tools or overhead. So the other one was the way in which it's shared, which is oftentimes it's shared by being put on a wall, being told that you can't touch it, and being told that you weren't born that way and that that person's important. None of those I don't think that's true at all. And so what I did was I went to the hardware store and I got all of the inexpensive materials that's self-attached, and I started playing with them. Out of all those materials, tape had the most potential. I played with all of them for a year. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on masking tape. And the challenge was to make things out of tape until I couldn't make something new any longer. And I did that for the first 8 years. And now it's do it until it's not fun. So, you know, I'm trying to make something that makes itself. I have other people that put on shows for me. This month, I had a show in Rome, Italy, Shenzhen, China, and Arizona and Phoenix on the same day. And that's because I'm comfortable sharing my process and teaching other people how to do it. And if I can develop a way that other people can make money by creating art and share it with others, I feel like I'm doing more good than if I was trying to control it. And you can't control anything. You can only understand and manipulate it. So just be happy I'm a good wizard.
Good times. All right, Glenn Gary, it's your turn. I know, Glenn Gary, I know you have some questions. We're getting lots of questions are coming in on the line here, guys. But we want to give some more of our interactive sites a chance. So down in Southern Alberta, Chestermere, are you guys ready with your question? Remember, you got to touch. If you can't touch your computer screen, then you're too far away. Chestermere, over to you.
Well, I think the gentleman kindly addressed the financial aspect of it. And do you guys have any questions? Yeah, Ben, go for it, Ben.
Is it only masking tape? Oh, or is it like Scotch tape as well? Or...
Oh, great question.
So it's every type of tape. I have about 2,000 rolls of tape. It's a tape renaissance right now. I just got back from the International Tape Art Festival in Berlin. And
sorry, there is an international festival?
Yeah, there's an international tape art convention in Berlin.
That is
every year.
The most awesome thing you get ever heard. Okay,
yeah, so you can look up Tape That. They're the ones that put it on, and you can see tape artists from all over the world.
Wowie kazowie.
That is so cool. You know what I think is I mean, amongst all the awesome parts to this is sometimes in schools, because I'm a school teacher, so I'm allowed to be critical of school teachers. Sometimes we kind of, and it's good, it's because we love our kids, but sometimes we want them to be safe. And sometimes we know what we did to be safe in our life. And then we want our students also to be safe. And so we say, well, there's so many things that you can do. And so that we kind of let them know about those things that we think are safe for them to do so that they can be happy when they get older. But what I love, Danny, is that you were like, okay, no, there's more than what I was told I could do to be safe and happy. What do you do for kids who are in school right now and they kind of have, I bet you like a dime to a dollar. We have students who are like, yeah, you know what, this is what people telling me I can't do this, and that I need to be maybe a little less creative and need to do something that is real, a real job.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, just remember, when someone tells you the world is a certain way, that's them absolving themselves of their personal responsibility to make it how they want to make it. So what I will tell you is, if you want to make art for a living, that's a completely different situation than making art to help you understand your life. And I make my art for my ideals, but I make it in my reality. And it's complicated to do, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it. Now, I never went to galleries when I was a child. I had no frame of reference for the fine art world that exists. And I have a business plan and a business manager, and I create pamphlets and I go to trade shows where I talk to the people who run the different events They would be the state fairs or maker fairs or Coachella. And I tell them what I can do and understand the language that they need to feel comfortable paying me to come so I can be an additive part of their event. So the way that I talk about the creative process is completely separate from the way in which I talk to people in order to make money. But you have to be able to find a bridge, a meeting ground, because the money is something that they want to give to you, but they have to feel good about doing it when it's art. And so how do you create a positive experience where everyone's feeling like they're doing something that is enjoyable and no one's trying to get one over on them? And it's a lot harder in America. But you can do it. You know, it's about putting time and effort and energy into it. I dug ditches to pay for my tape for the first few years. I fixed cars. I walked the dogs. I planted plants. And I did all those things because I wasn't working for someone. I was working with other people. But, you know, the dirt never talks back. So for me, what's important is being able to wake up and have the space to think of new ideas. And that's what pushes my personal creativity forward. And I accept that I have to make money right now. Eventually, I can trade tape for everything. I can trade tape for a lot of things in my life. But understand that the way in which you get money is open to you. There's a man who goes around the United States of America and he sells the moon. He has a map of the moon and he claimed the moon is his. And because no country can legally claim the moon. So he's like, well, the moon's mine. And then he goes and he sells really pretty parts of the map to different people for tens of thousands of dollars. So when someone says that that's an unrealistic way of living your life, it's just like, no, it's just a harder or more complicated one. It's much easier to wake up and go to a place where you do what someone else tells you and you get a paycheck. And if you can, you know, it's up to you to decide what you want to do, but don't limit yourself by other people's assertions of who you are or assumptions of who you can be. Very nice. So you guys are already working together.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, on the same lines, I have JC who asked a question. She would like to know if there are a lot of tape artists and if you work together or is there some kind of competition? And so while you're answering that though, I want our friends down in North Carolina. We're going to you next. All right, so you want to get your question ready? Because as soon as I'm going to repeat the question one more time because I so rudely interrupted the response. But North Carolina, I want you to be ready because we're going to you for the question. So here's the question one more time from JC from Ms. Cohen O'Brien's class. Jesse asked, JC would like to know if there are a lot of tape artists and if you work together or is there a competition?
Well, there are a lot of tape artists. You know, there's no competition in creativity. There's only competition in society. And if you want to spend your time trying to be better than somebody else, no one's going to stop you for it, but you might get judged for being not the best person in the world. Now, whatever you want to do, like you can make it up. What I find is I surround myself with people who encourage me to do it. And I don't surround myself with people who are negative towards me or what I do, because I don't have room or energy or effort for that, nor is it a waste of time. And well, it is difficult to just be like, well, that person doesn't approve of what I do. It's more difficult to try and live your life how someone else thinks you should. So for me, there's never been competition, but I'm not making someone else's art. I'm making my art. You know, don't make art up. And if you make something about who you are as an individual and your unique voice, because you're the only unique thing in the world. You have the most access to yourself. And if you make it about who you are and you develop who you want to be, your art won't be like anything else and you'll never have to compete. And so that's just what my focus is. And I don't participate with people who are competitive. I can also tell you this, I think I'm the best person in the world at making things out of tape. So does every other tape artist. So they're not really competing.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's so cool. We live in a world where there's so many people telling us that we have to compete, and we can deny it, right? And then we rather than competing, we can celebrate together and create. Like, I wouldn't have had this hat if it wasn't for Sarah, who helped me put it together, because I was really struggling. And so thanks. Okay, I got a question from Mila, and then Glengarry, we're going to go back to you next. So you get ready for another question, and then St. Gabe's, you're going to chance for one more question. We only have like 9 minutes left. 9 minutes. But I'm going to go to Mila, who wants to know about this giraffe. And is that giraffe behind you also made of tape?
Well, it's not completely made out of tape. That's a piece of glass. My professional studio is also a glass blowing studio, a metal fabrication facility, a wood shop, an art gallery, a torch working studio. But this is a long-legged derpicorn, and unicorns made out of tape are called derpicorns, and a group of derpicorns is called a thunderfluff. So that's what we consider this to be. But remember, art is exactly what it looks like and whatever you want it to be at the same time. So make sure that you make it up.
So just a second, you're saying that although this is Tapigami, I don't have to only use tape?
No.
Huh.
So you don't make it be something it's not supposed to be, right? Like, you would never walk up and try and burn metal to heat your food up.
Cool. All right, let's go. We got to zoom in here. We got 2 more questions. St. Gabe, you're going to get 1 more question. Our friends in North Carolina, if you have something, let us know via the chat window. We're cool for it. But Glengarry, we're going to go to you first. So come right on up to the screen and let us know. We have a young woman here that's with a beautiful smile who is so courageous. I'm so impressed by how courageous all you are to come on up and to share those questions. You're doing such a great job. Okay, Glengarry, over to you.
What is your favorite creation or sculpture?
Oh, good question.
So my favorite, I've been making the same thing for my whole life. And what it is it's an ever expanding, self-generating sculpture. And the goal is to have it make itself. And that exists in a bunch of different forms, but I don't see these 2 pieces of art are not separate. They're the same piece of art, and they can be displayed together. They're objects. So I don't limit myself to saying that something's ever finished. In fact, it's a lot better if it's never finished, because then you can always work on it. And that's what I've been making. The other favorite thing that I've made is the living.
Good times. All right, let's go. Kinson has a question, and then we'll still be able to go to St. Gabe's for another question. So Kinston, our friends in North Carolina, tell us, what is your question? Go ahead.
You can maybe study in college.
What did I study in college?
To study like the
No, I hear you. I'm just laughing because I studied how to not go to class.
Oh.
Yeah. I've read absolutely everything that they assigned me in college. And I studied my piece of paper says that I have a bachelor's in studio art. By the time that I was a junior, I had no more requirements to study. So I would go to the library and I would find the books on the artists that I thought were interesting, and I would read interviews about them. And in those interviews, they would reference their inspiration. And so I would go and get books on those artists and read interviews from them, and they would reference their inspiration. And I would read that. And I was tracking an idea that has been developing in art for a long time back through history. And then once I found out where that was, I went forward again. And so, really briefly, in Western society, art was used to control the classes. There was ministers of culture that dictated what was and wasn't art. And so no matter what you wanted to do, like if you couldn't make art out of certain materials like gold or bronze or glass, you could never be an artist. And since the Industrial Revolution, artists have been taking back culture through materials. And that's another one of the reasons that I use masking tape to make art accessible, because art was purposefully made not accessible by kings and nobles and the church in order to limit individuals' ability to move up or to have better lives. And it's, to me, something that's why I feel like we've lost our art and we're trying to get it back, but it's going to take a little while. But that's all we used to do, is just make art every day. There's entire societies where their currency was just squares of fabric that they communally made. All the work was split in between men and women, the Luba people in Central Africa. And they'd make these squares, and that was their money. And that everyone just spent their free time making these squares of fabric, and that's how they created wealth and like maintained it in their society, was just making art every day.
Thank you.
So cool. All right, so I have Adriana here, has a question about how do you picture the art object and then get started on the design?
Well, work comes from work. And what I'm doing most of my time is doodling. And the way, you know, my definition of a doodle is once you start caring about it, it's no longer a doodle. Now, I also do private commissions. And if I'm doing a private commission, someone comes in and say they want something. And it's okay, so then we go and we get notebooks and we start drawing in the notebooks what we think that thing looks like. We get dimensions. And I sit around with other people in my studio and we're like, okay, well, does this need an understructure? Do we need to make a metal frame for it? Like, what's the purpose? How light does it need to? That's the reality part of it. Like, what do we need to make this fulfill its purpose or what they think it is? But when I'm making my own art, I'm just sitting around trying to figure out how to do things I've never done before. And so I'm just doodling a lot so I can learn techniques, so I can create new objects or textures or forms that allow me to expand my ability to create anything out of tape. But so, you know, those are the two different sides. That's like being able to generate the idea and then being able to realize the idea. But I just work every day. And, you know, I don't draw any longer. I drew for a long time, but I can understand three-dimensional volume the same way that LeBron James can understand basketball. Like, it just makes sense. That's one of my innate characteristics is if I see something, I know how big it is and I can hold it in my head and I know what it needs to look like. So, you know, that's just something that I found throughout my time exploring art. But I took every single art class that was offered at my school. So photography, printmaking, digital art, performance art, wood shop, sculpting, casting, painting, drawing, all of those to figure out what I could do. And the more skills you have to manipulate the physical world, robotics, chemistry, biology, the more you can create in it.
Amazing. You know what I love about what you shared there, because sometimes, I mean, I'm a teacher and I taught mathematics and I also taught music, but one of the things is we think that there's certain kinds of smarts. So there's a book smart and there's like a math smart and unless you're really good at those smarts, we spend a lot of time at school thinking that we're not smart. But what you were sharing is that you have a different kind of smart. You know what I mean? Like you talked about LeBron James is smart, which is about basketball, and you have a smart, a way of understanding around volume that you just know how it is. Do you have any words for those kids who are maybe spending a lot of time in school hearing from teachers who love them, but maybe they don't know how to express that in certain ways, about who maybe feel that their smart isn't being heard?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have words that I can't share here, but basically it's just their opinion. And so if someone's talking down to you instead of encouraging you, politely point out that they're not actually encouraging you. And their job as a teacher, as far as you know, because you guys are working in reciprocity, which means you should be learning from each other, right? Teachers should learn from students and students should learn from teachers. And what's important is that you encourage each other because you're learning, right? We're not building a bridge where if we don't do it right, the bridge falls apart. We're building a society through sharing ideas and encouraging each other to be better. And we're trying to find out what is our best way to do it. So just telling someone they're not good at something doesn't have any sort of positive effect whatsoever. But encouraging them to explore other things does. And, you know, like whatever you want to do, you can do. You just put your mind to it. And the things that get in the way shouldn't be the people that you're in school with. There's so many things in life that you have absolutely no control over. And they're going to happen to you regardless of what you do and how you live your life. And the only power you have is to dictate how you want to respond and deal with them, to not let them upset you. But there's an infinite number of things in life that are positive that you have complete control over. And if you spend your time focusing on being positive and encouraging each other, you'll have a lot more positive parts of your life.
Brilliant. Now, Danny, I want to hang out with you all day. Seriously. And I want to hang out with these students. Honestly, we could spend like a crazy amount of, like, I'm not even addressing like a tenth of the questions that are coming in. But our time's up. And I know that students have to go back to classes, and that's just kind of the way it works. I'm going to let, do you have any last, so Carolyn, I'm going to pass it to you afterwards to kind of wrap things up. But Danny,
I do have one, I always end on the same note.
Please do.
You can always email me the questions and we'll try to get back to them. We'll try to get to as many as we can. But the thing that I tell everyone is this is my idea that I've had for a long time and that I practice every day. And I want everyone to think about this idea and make it their own. And that my idea is once you're done with everything you need to do for your day, you take your time and your energy to create something beautiful that you believe in greatly. And you wake up in the morning and you give it to someone that you don't know and you tell them that you love them. We would all change the world overnight.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I loved all the questions. And anytime you guys are in Sacramento, just let us know through the website or the Instagram, which is Tapigami. They're both Tapigami. And you can come check out the studio.
Awesome. Awesome. Carolyn, we're out of time. Do you want any parting words? There we go. We got you. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. First, I just want to say thank you to you, Terry, for hosting this lovely event. And Danny, thank you so much for sharing that. I know I'm going to be spending my day looking at objects and seeing how I can make that with tape. So I think that's a good lesson for all of us as well. Just want to also say a big thank you to our sponsors for all of Beakerhead education events is NSERC and Government of Alberta, and our presenting sponsor, which is Axia. So thanks again for tuning in today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, students.
Bye.
Have a great day. Goodbye.